Welcome to the Football 360 show. I am JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman. A beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Joining you here, going to talk some football. Doesn't seem like football weather in October.
Feels perfect out there.
Well, it's perfect for everyday living.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But it's not usual. I remember last year around this time, it started getting really cold.
We played a game the same weekend last year. It was 47, 45, yes. Windy, murky, no sun out.
Right.
This year it's going to be 65.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So hopefully it holds up. I'm perfectly fine with it staying warm because football season this year goes into like December the 6th, December the 10th, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, the warmer it stays, I'm good with. Because that's one of the things I don't like the drop off. Usually you go from 1 week where it's 80 degrees like this to the next week you're 32 to 29 degrees and you're having to stand out there and enjoy the elements.
It's last week.
You'd rather be running on the field.
Wednesday night last week was cold at practice for my junior team, and then every other day I've been in shorts and feeling just fine. Right. And I think this week I looked at the weather. We have our last game. I think I'm going to go the whole season wearing shorts.
I'm telling you what, it's great. I'm on this no pants till December plan. So hopefully that can hold up. Hopefully nothing comes in. But last year it got a little brutal at times.
Yeah.
Especially during the playoffs standing there.
That's why they got to get the state game back at the Dome. Leave it even Steven. Let everybody play at the same place. And
well, I don't know if we talked about it, but starting next year it's in St. Joseph, Missouri.
Really?
Yes.
At Missouri Western?
Correct. So, I was just going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and say it,
man.
The 20 fans from each team that show up is
going
to be a little chilly.
What's the reason for that?
I know, but I can't think of it right now. I think it has something to do. The contract with Mizzou's run out, and I think that the reasoning, or at least the response given, is to spread it around. I guess I don't know. Usually not a lot of representation from up in that part of the state. That's a long trek for St. Louis teams to make. Columbia.
Well, think about if you're from the boot heel.
Perfect. Well, yeah.
I mean, my God, that's like
not
an easy trip.
Yeah, it's almost like going to another country.
That's a long trip.
That is a long trip. As somebody who all over
who's on the road show.
Yeah. That is a long trip. It's a long trip just from St. Louis up to there. You're talking about an extra hour and a half up north of Kansas City.
Right.
Which is so it's it's a nice little trek.
At least when it was in St. Louis, it was at a facility. People could come in town.
Didn't have to worry about the elements.
Right. Didn't have to worry about the elements. It's a pretty cool place to play.
Yep.
I was looking at it like I know people talk a lot of smack about the Dome, but it has new turf. It's wall to wall, wall to wall, full turf now. It should have been back in the day. New lighting. And then you look at the Superdome, and I was looking, Superdome was a lot older than the Dome. So people were saying, when the Rams left, it's horrible. It's one of the worst in there. But I think some of that was just the narrative to leave, right? Because if you look at it, because the Superdome, I mean, the Dome in America Center seats, it's 76,000. It's a large dome, whereas the Superdome, I think, is 62,000. I mean, it's significantly different. Now, I'm sure they have a lot more suites and all that stuff, where all the money's really made selling corporate suites. But
you're talking about a high school championship game, though. I mean, it's perfect in St. Louis. It's got the accommodations. It's got the restaurants. It's got a little bit of sightseeing for people when they come.
But I think the cost is probably what's the prohibitive factor. Renting an outdoor stadium in December. Versus an indoor stadium,
get a little bit of a knockoff the price.
Yeah. And I think that the issue when it goes to the St. Louis side of it is anytime, and I've been in some events there recently. Anytime you're there, there's a larger security presence, so you're paying for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's the union component where the moving the turf in and out has got to be done by certain people. There's a certain statutory rate for what you pay those people. That's not occurring at Mizzou, say for instance, or it's not occurring at Missouri Western or Missouri State.
Yeah, I just like to see it be played on the biggest stage that it possibly can, for the most people to get out
Yeah.
there and go, because even the ones in Columbia, I mean, they're not super well attended
No,
because it's whittled down, and so fans people that aren't fans of the schools, particular schools or
that's
students
who's the only people there are people that are either
outside of your people like you and me,
yeah.
and the diehards, and the very interested people. So any way to help elevate it and keep it on the biggest stage possible,
Well,
that's
that's
what
the other thing
support.
too is like, and I know some of it's just the modern era, but back in the day when they would put it on TV and
Mhm.
actual the real TV,
Oh yeah,
not an online streaming,
network TV. Yeah.
like it was something to be playing for. It's extra special.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of states that still do it
Illinois does a
that
great
have
job.
a really good broadcast.
Hmm.
Missouri is severely lacking when it comes to that. Like the game day production is not horrible, but it was go back 5 years, no, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. That broadcast was Michael Young was doing it,
Yeah.
Randy Carricker was doing it,
There
and
were
guys
some
like that. There's professional
broadcasters,
broadcasters. I forgot the guy. There's a guy that does some NFL games. That did a couple.
Yeah.
Baldinger.
Yeah, Baldinger. Yeah,
I mean, like that
he's
guy's
coming
done
from the kid. I think he broadcast for the Chiefs for
Yeah.
a while there.
right. So he does a good job. So like, I think they need to get back to that. Again, they probably won't
Without a
listen
doubt.
to us, but
Well, I mean, eventually you're going to see the Football 360 show, state championship.
there we go
On TV,
All right,
and you and
all
I
right.
can
You put the stake in the ground.
I can call it. You can be the color man.
I'll be the color guy. I'm not calling anything. I'm too distracted, too ADD.
You'll be getting angry.
Yeah.
He should have.
Yeah, we don't want that.
You'll start coaching from the.
Well, there's a referee ban or something like that,
Yeah.
like where I'm, like Tom Brady can't comment now on referees because he's the owner.
Oh yeah.
On calls. I think that's
Yeah.
going to be interesting.
They finally catch up to you.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
Yeah. So you got your season's winding down then.
one game
One game left. When is that? I might have to
this
pop out there.
Saturday. So we
what time?
3:00. So I was talking before the show, and it's kind of an interesting deal because we won our league already. So it's a bonus game, if you will. So like we it's a point system is how they do the league. So it's an eight game league. And then it's done just like Misha with the 13 points plus or minus. And there's out of the 4 age groups, the main 4, 5th through 8th grade, 3 of the divisions have already been decided before this game even gets played because it's statistically impossible for a team to score more than 13 points. So you could lose your game, still win the league, right? So there's 3 teams that have already clinched. I think us in 8th grade, a 7th grade team, and then a 6th grade team have all clinched. So it's kind of a different way to do it.
So then this is your last regular season game, and then you have the playoffs?
No, it's done.
It's done.
It's already done. So it'll be
Really?
done. We already won.
So there's no like
We're not playing for any. It is
like other people are.
correct. So they a couple years ago the league voted not to do. They wanted 8 games and they voted there's no championship. So but theoretically.
So what do you So is anybody playing for anything this weekend?
Not our team is not. We've already won the league. Our 7th grade team's already won the league, and then so we're playing a good team.
Mm-hmm. Who you playing?
We get to play Eureka again.
Okay.
And then I don't know who our 7th grade team plays, and then but there's some good matchups. But the other games that are like let's say the 3rd place, 4th place, or 3rd place and 5th place game, those theoretically those guys are playing for something because there's still jockeying room between, theoretically someone could win the 3rd place game and still not have enough points to take the jump and be 3rd place. But I also, one of the age groups, you can see where there's a team playing for 3rd place, but they're all so close between the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. If they win their game, statistically, they could almost jump to number 1 in their league because of how tight everything is, even though they didn't play each other.
Right.
So it's a really interesting way to do it.
So is it at West?
It's at West.
Is it West?
Yeah.
I might be in the area. I might be able to
hop on in. Should be fun. Weather should be good. We're just for us. I think for our team, I think it's going to be fun because it's the culmination of 4 years together.
I just
have
asked,
some fun.
If you lose,
yeah,
let me talk to the kids. That's all I want.
Yeah, you won't.
That's all I want.
You know what? It's one of those things.
That's all I
that
want to say.
At the end of the
Don't
day,
pull them off.
At the end of the day, it's kind of you get yourself in a situation where you win no matter what. You win whether you lose.
Right.
You win if you win.
Yeah.
But I think the approach for our kids is just we've been telling them, because it is kind of that's a weird scenario in sport, because most of the time you're literally playing for something, and you always want to play to win.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's bigger than that, because it's the end of 4 years with these guys, and you want to have fun. You want to make sure guys are getting in the game and having a good experience, right? And because it's the last time they're together.
And you also have to teach young men how to handle adversity.
Oh yeah.
Right. And how to handle their emotions.
Yep.
So there's that factor. I mean, I think a lot of that gets lost. Sometimes I think there's some egos involved and they get bruised, and then people, when it's really not about them. And so
I watched a situation this weekend where, my view as a youth coach or high school coach is always control your controllables on your sideline, right? Mm-hmm. Control what you guys are doing. And it's not, yes, there are times when you need to just, if you're beating something, like we were up this weekend really fast in the first quarter, like 30 points fast, right? And the clock starts running. So, like, at that point, it's a mad dash to get any and everybody in the game. Another game that I witnessed, same type of scenario, coaches on the other sideline, they're trying to get, it's a point differential thing. So they're getting beat by plus 13. They need to be probably more in the 10 to 9 range when they're losing. This team's beating them, not necessarily doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are mad because they want, why do you still have your starters in? And it's like, well, wait a second, like, you got to defend yourself. Right. So I think that's the hard thing with, at the junior level, you see it all the time. I see some of the youth leagues, people don't understand that they have to have a point system to rank people and then put them in a tournament, if so to speak, or a bracket. Or, just have an outright league champion, right? And then, and I will tell you, back in the day when I first started coaching junior football in like 99, 2000, the league that I was in, Park Rock at the time, there was no championship. Whoever just won the league, and they didn't really talk about it. The behavior and the sportsmanship between those teams was far greater, right? And that could have just been the back in the day, the time.
Right.
Fast forward, and now you got these Super Bowls, championships. It drives a lot of bad behaviors,
sure
right?
Does.
Of course, you do want to win, but at the same time, how do you win? Do you win with class? Do you win, what do you do, right? And so, I'm on the side of like my team. I look at it as one before they play a game, before the season even started, because they understand the game at a higher level than they did when they did the year before. They learn how to do things better. They're not perfect. They're running more advanced stuff than most of the other teams were playing, right? They're running stuff that you'd see in a high school level, and they're able to do it. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but they win because they're learning the game of football. And I think a lot of guys lose sight. And the winning is a result of what they're doing in practice and what they've learned and what they've worked on the off season. And then you start getting to the point where, like, so many people are worried about, like, teaching a system. Well, that system is only as good as if the individuals understand how to actually operate the system, right? Meaning, like, do they know how to get in a proper stance? Do they know how to tackle? Do they need to know what where their hand placement is, foot placement? Like, there's so much to the game of football that, people are like, well, this is what we run. This is what we do. And this is our brand of football. And it's disingenuous to the game at large, because like, what is that system? Like, they're going to run something different if they move. They're going to run something different if they go to college.
Yeah.
Blocking's blocking, tackling's tackling, catching's catching, throwing's throwing. And if you're not working on those things as a youth coach, you are missing the point.
No. I got to tell you. And, you got not only got to teach people how to win, you got to teach them how to lose.
Oh, yeah.
And how to do it well. But I'm telling you, man, the junior football, it's wild, right? The games I've been at,
off the charts.
It is wild. The parents, the coaches, this interaction between the referees and the parents and the coaches, And sometimes you get parents standing down there amongst the coaches or on the sidelines, and it's just like it just gets pretty wild. And I'm just like, what's going on? You know what I mean?
Well,
Is this like a Sandlot game where everybody and their family just showed up and is doing their thing?
have you
And I'm unfortunately seeing, and not just with the JFL stuff, but I'm unfortunately seeing a lot of poor sportsmanship this season, including guys who teams where they're up 30, 40, 50 points, and they're just being poor sportsmanship, trying to hurt guys, trying to humiliate guys. And I'm like, what is up with that?
You know, I had a couple weeks ago, we were in a game and we were up. I mean, we've been up pretty substantially on everybody we've played. And on our sideline, there was an opportunity. I think we were up like 40 something, nothing, whatever. And it's just towards the end of the game. And it's been out of reach for a while, right? Once that clock starts running in middle school football, it's 8-minute quarters. I mean, the game's done. And there was a right on our sideline, and we had two kids that could have put a shot on this guy. And they just kind of held up a little bit, just kind of pushed him out of bounds. The referee looked at me and said, that was great.
Yeah.
He's like, they could have absolutely taken him out. And he's like, it wouldn't have been a penalty. He's like, but that shows restraint and it shows they've been taught the right thing. I said, well, sometimes I'd like them to be a little more aggressive, but I said, you're right. In this scenario, you're right. I mean, like what point does it take, for that? And so I won't name names, but I watched a game this weekend and a team had won significantly. The other team scored at the last play of the game, right? And I see it from both sides. And so the game is kind of pretty much done, right? And it's like, so they're lining up to do shake hands, the one team that's winning or won, and the other team insists that they want to go for their extra point, right? The problem with that is that, okay, I get it. You're right, but the referees had already started walking off as if the game was over, right?
Yeah.
So, then they got mad, right? And then they run a play, and then from my vantage point, I was on the far end zone. A kid got hurt on the team that went for the extra point, and I think it was a significant injury, like Achilles or something lower leg. So you sometimes your ego gets in, it's like, well, I these guys are disrespectful. We need to run this play. And it's like, no, take a big step back. Like that 1 point or 2 points you're going to get is not going to make a hill of beans, like in the grand scheme of things. Like it doesn't really matter.
Nobody's going to remember it.
Right. So
remember the injury.
So and I will tell you, like I have learned to one more play in a game, in a context, that coach definitely had the right to run that play. But the referees were not encouraging the play to be run, right? They knew the game was over. But usually the number of times I've seen in training or games, it's one more. Let me do one more. And that's where the injuries always happen, right?
Yeah.
It's always one more.
Yeah.
And so I just think, people need to keep things in perspective. And I think that's the cool thing about like the youth football thing. I've had teams that have run the board for 3 or 4 years undefeated. And I don't know that, looking back on it, it was a fun experience, right? But it didn't provide a lot of angst or a lot of adversity for them because they were out, just out playing people.
Right.
But in their defense, they did what they were asked to do. They showed up and played. They won. But I think that adversity, whereas I have this team now that's had just a few bumps in the road over 4 years, and it's fun to see them grow and not wilt. Right. They had a tough loss last year at the end of their season. They won their league, had a tough loss in their last game, and then came back better this year. Right. Yeah. And I think, to me, individually, you look for kids to expand on who they are, and then the team get better. And so it's just not easy. But the same thing happens in high school. Same thing happens in college. Right. The dynamics are a little different in college and pro because of rosters and shifts. But high school and middle schools, by and large, are the same kind of concept, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean some of this bad poor sportsmanship I'm seeing is from seniors in high school, and it's just to me that just blows my mind.
The cheap shot stuff and
just the humiliation aspect and different things, and everybody's out there trying to do the same thing, and that goes back to the whole you don't know who's there, you don't know who's watching you, right? And
You never know.
You never know. So you should always. I mean, I was raised that way, right? My mother always raised me. You never know when you're going to turn around and I'm going to be there watching you. So you better act like as if I'm there all the
Or
time.
her friend that knows
Well,
you
that was
and they could
a given.
tell on you, right?
Absolutely. And when we were kids, that was the thing, right?
Mhm.
If you were running around the neighborhood, you did something, you know,
Oh, you were found out.
you found out because people went to your parents right away and were like,
But
and
you
that was
don't like.
that.
Here's the deal: you and I are both guys that we're at games. We see things. We talk to people. Like they may know that we're there. They may not know. They may know another opposing coach. That's the other thing. Is like you don't know who the coach, that guy that's on the other sideline that you're beating, and you're being a jackass. Like
Yeah.
that guy might be friends with the guy that's recruiting you, or
Right.
you think is
Oh,
recruiting you, right?
right.
And that guy is going to get an honest report on your behalf, and or and say, yeah, this guy I'd steer clear. But on the reverse, say that you're out there competing your butt off. You play a heck of a game. You walk over. You talk to the opposing coach. Tell him, "Hey, great job. It was fun competing against you." And you let it just go, right? And you just have a good time and you and enjoy being a competitor. That guy can say something to his buddy that's a college coach, and next thing you know, you're moving up the rankings and they're on the board because hey, they
Absolutely.
trust that coach. That coach gave a good word on your behalf. But JP, far too many kids view this as adversarial. Yes, you want to compete and win against people, but at the same time, like you can do something and go through life that's an aggressive thing, like it's a high focused event, and not be a jerk.
Yeah.
You could be a good person and compete. I mean,
I think a lot of it is me. You know what I mean? I think we're hyper focused, especially in the younger generation, about me, right? Social media, this, what am I doing? What's my highlight? Is this going to make Instagram? Is this going to make TikTok? Is this going to be on my reel? Whereas, on the flip side, you see after the game, even though there's stuff and there's people that are ticky tacky and do, stupid stuff, you see the talent find the other talent and they're shaking hands and they're congratulating each other on their performance and their seasons and all that. And that's the cool stuff. That's what negates.
So we have
stuff.
a Joe, you can pull the picture. We have a picture speaking in that same vein. So like there was a big rivalry game this week or big, matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So got this picture after the game from Rob Boyd, who's Carson's father, and then Dylan Duff. So two of the top quarterbacks, one going to Illinois, Carson going to Illinois, Dylan going to K-State, two Division I guys battling it out. And you know what? They're smiling.
Yep.
Right? Those guys respect each other. They know that they fight a lot of the same fights as each other, right? Like trying to compete every week, lead their teams. They have the stress of being a Division I guy. Everybody's eyes are on them all the time. But after the game, they can smile.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They can be buddies. And it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day,
they respect each other.
One wins, one loses. Big deal. Like, yes, I know as a coach, it hurts. As a player, it hurts. But it shouldn't hurt for that long. You just got to move on. Like, is that are they gonna let that derail their career?
No, but that's two exceptional young human beings,
right? Who've been raised right.
Absolutely.
That have perspective.
Those two young guys are guys who everybody could be like, man, I want my son to be like that. Right. I want that to be my son.
Yeah.
And like I said, they've been through it. They've been through it all together. How many camps have they been to together? How many? How many training sessions? Right. I mean, I can just off the top of my head, it's just, going through the various camps and the various combines and different stuff they've all, and at Elite just doing.
Right.
And so they respect each other. They know the work the other ones put in. They know and they're under the same spotlight.
And you know what? In the grand scheme of things, as long as you gave your best effort and your team gave its best effort, we're not going to have like a game that's going to go on 20 overtimes. Like we're not like, it has to be a decision. There's a winner and a loser. Like that's competition. Like it is what it is. Like Dylan Duff can learn from that. Carson can learn from that game and they can move on and be better players because of it. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Mm.
You want to compete. You want to be around guys that are going to push you. To me, I watched a documentary the other day and it was really, really interesting. It was two guys one of these climbing a mountain deal and like, something that's never been climbed before. And the guy I forgot his name, but he did free solo. He's the guy that like climbed up El Capitan, with no ropes, and so these guys are clearly on a different level when it comes to fortitude and just the ability to
Right.
do hard things. And like, I mean,
They're wired
not
different.
99.999% of all human beings would climb
Same, nah.
5 rungs up the side of the hill and then just come down, right?
Right.
Just because it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But the guy, again, I should probably know his name, but he gets done, he's talking, and it was like how the documentary pretty much ends, and he says, in my younger years, I would build up and have this bravado and this anger about me, like I'm tough, and do you know what I do, and this and that. He's like, and as I've gotten older, I've learned that I can be a good person and enjoy it and still climb and still
Yeah.
have and enjoy it, right? And I think what he said it really put some things in perspective for me, because in football it's a lot of bravado, it's a lot of showmanship and all those things, but at the end of the day, it's just a competition. You're trying to do the best you can do. Thank God they're over there because you get to play against them and they're doing the best they can do. It's not like the end of the world. Yes, there are winners and there's losers. There's guys who execute, there's guys that don't execute. Those guys will be found out and they will go through the ranks, and then they're going to have to execute at the new level, right? And so that's how it shakes out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, as a human being, it doesn't make you a bad person because you lost a game or you threw an interception or you dropped the ball or whatever it might be. It's how you respond. And I think it's that that world that we live in where everything is like these kids. And so it's leading into have you seen the new trend? And it's mind numbing to me that this even happens, but someone told me they witnessed it at a 10 or 11U game this past weekend. So, when teams lose and they're going through the line, have you seen this thing where they grab a towel or something and they whip the other team?
I've seen some
on their
of it,
behind,
yeah.
they're whipping them,
Mhm.
they're taking a belt to them, and it's
Yeah.
what? You
That's the way
won,
to
so you
start
need
a
to
fight. Yeah.
humiliate them.
And that's
In
what I was
our
talking
era,
about. Yeah.
someone does that, they're getting knocked out.
Right.
This now it's for video and it's to humiliate somebody, and that to me is just where are the adults?
Yeah.
But you see the parents are encouraging some of this stuff, and I just, it's hard to fathom.
Well, again, it goes back to what I was saying about being wild. Some of the JFL stuff that I've seen is just kind of wild with the attitudes. And you're right; it comes from the parents. A lot of that comes from the parents. I mean, and luckily, some of the times some of those refs, they really got their stuff together, right, and they don't have a problem speaking back and just shutting people down. But I mean, it just kind of blows my mind to have a parent at a 7th, 8th grade game wanting to fight and try to tell a referee how to do their job.
Oh yeah.
Or about a play, or a parent and a coach.
Oh, I heard. Well,
go at it,
and it goes both ways. Yeah.
And I'm just, I'm like a dog hearing something. I'm like, what is this?
I heard a situation where there was a parent had yelled their kids hey, put so and so in or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty benign comment, right? A parent is going to cheer for their kid, maybe advocate for their kid more than others. But a coach took offense to that and came to the fence and started, yelling and, made it personal, right? And then of course, now you're calling another man out, and then that's where it just becomes an issue, right? And so the problem is that people, if you just take a big step back, and I think a parent advocating for their kid, it's hard to say, but a parent crossing the line is a different story. But I've seen some crazy, and I've heard some crazy stories about the junior football stuff, with the fights and stuff after the games, and
you hear about that every so often. Every year it becomes a viral thing.
Right. I mean, last year, remember there was a guy that went onto the practice field and shot the coach.
Correct. Yeah.
In front of the kids.
Right.
Because his kid wasn't playing or something along that line. I mean, my God, come on. Is there anything worse than that? You're taking it way out of ranks and out of proportion that
And the nice thing is that's so rare. You have more of the Dylan Doffs and Carson Boyds. And I saw another one. I was in Columbia, Brady Davidson. My gosh, what a good young person, what a good young man he is. His parents can be really proud of him. I mean, same vein as Dylan
Hmm.
and Carson. Just, after the game, standing there, just doing the interview, just so on top of everything. Intelligent young guy, just has it. And you know what? You can tell with people like Carson and Dylan and Brady, they're going to be successful after football. But if I am a D1 school, right? And I'm talking about a SEC Big Ten school, I'm giving him a
Take your
call
blinders off.
just to see, because man, he can rip it.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, he's just, and he was talking to me. He's like, he was trying to run the ball a little more because that was the knock on him, that he's not a
he's
runner.
athletic.
He is athletic. He's a very athletic kid. Big time basketball player, can golf. In fact, waiting for me to interview him, he was over there practicing his golf swing
After a big win.
after a big win. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I might just take up golf and become a pro golfer. And
A lot of quarterbacks have been good golfers.
yeah, just you're talking about a 6'5", 6'6" kid who can really rip
He
it.
can flat ass throw it.
Oh my god, and that's a good way to put it. I should write that in a report.
He can
Flat ass throw it.
Anyway, when you see guys that
That's
can do it,
descriptive.
that's
Yeah.
a descriptive.
And he can, and with ease.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy who has to rear back and do it. It's boom.
He's a great example though, and I think you play multiple sports, and I think this is where we can veer into the conversation of the multi-sport athlete, right? Because a lot of kids are multi-sport athletes, and they get into a situation where, the coach at that time of that sport, I mean, that's what they're coaching. So that's their singular focus. And we've asked kids so many times that, they could be a multi-sport athlete, the schools need you. But then he was a guy that had to make some hard decisions this offseason that probably, looking back, he will say, man, I wish I could have gone to this or that for football, because that's what I'm playing college. But
Right.
he bit the bullet and did the basketball or did the, and baseball, whatever, all those things.
Yeah.
And he probably benefits from those sports, but as he's getting better and better at football, the more time he spends on football, his stock will continue to rise. And
Right.
so
his best football will be ahead of him.
right. And I think that's where, it's really hard to make this like cover all statement that's like, well, yeah, you should be, playing 3 sports. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you look at the landscape of where football is going,
you could specialize.
You better specialize.
Yep.
Because they're not looking at that. And I get it, because the high school teams or the club teams are like, hey, we really need you, because if we don't get you to play football, or if we don't get you to play basketball, I know you love football, but we need you for baseball and basketball.
Yeah.
Because then we need to win a state. And so it's just a tough situation for these kids they get put in. And he's a great example, because I watched it, with 7-on-7 this year. Like, he came to Kansas City and thought for sure he was going to get to play, and they called a Sunday practice and he couldn't play, but his little brother got to play.
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating, because those reps do mean something for a guy that's developing, that's getting ready to be seen this summer, that coming summer.
Yeah.
for by scouts. And so I don't know. I think it's a tough situation, but he always comes to mind because he's still like a throwback with all the sports. But I do think his football ahead of him. If you're a big school, you need to be looking at him.
Absolutely. Another guy who he's playing against Brock Kemp.
Yeah.
Right. Brock is a 6'6", 240-pound tight end who's in love with basketball.
Yep.
Right. Been following him for 4 years. And he just loves basketball. Really good basketball player, talented basketball player. But at 6'6", 240, you're a little limited. Now, he does have a basketball offer from Lindenwood. He also has a football offer from Lindenwood, and he's going to take a visit there. But he's a guy who, as you watch him develop and as you watch him continue, and in college, if he continues on that trajectory, you're talking about, I see NFL potential now. And it makes you wonder if there had been that specialization focus on football, you probably wouldn't be able to touch him if you were, a Colorado State or a Lindenwood or a school like that. 2 schools that are recruiting him pretty heavy. But he's one of those guys who would wind up going to one of those schools, and then next thing you know, you're seeing wait, well, there's Brock Camp in the NFL. How'd that happen? Well, he was
How did
that
a guy come
guy.
out of Lindenwood, right? Well,
Well,
because they got good players
Hickman,
there.
they weren't a great program. Where did he? I didn't know that he was from Missouri. Got a kid from Missouri.
Yeah.
But there are those guys all over the place, and a lot of times they don't get that attention for various reasons. One might be that they're involved with other sports. They love another sport. They're not at a quote unquote pipeline school.
Yeah.
Which seems to be becoming more of a problem as far as colleges not wanting to go off the beaten path, beating the bushes like back in the day, looking for those guys. And they're there.
All they got to do is talk
they're
to coaches and figure out who's who, because, like, it's kind of like the transfer portal. You have to make decisions about, being on the field. So like there's this going into high school, you have to make this decision of, okay, what's more valuable, playing at a high level program that's going to compete for a championship or getting reps, right? Like getting early reps.
Yeah.
Right. Do I want to wait to a junior to play, or do I want to be a sophomore and play? Right. I think the way the game has shifted, like you have to be on the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're not, now the tough thing is, like, you don't want to go to a program that's going to start you as a freshman, because that's probably a sign
get you
that but like I get there's one or two kids that you can do that, right? Yep. There's some rare guys, a bunch of them, right?
This year.
Yeah, there's a lot, but some of that's just an indication sometimes that there's just some big holes in programs. But other programs, I mean, it's like
this year, I would say it's really the elevation of the talent level,
right?
Just across the state, it's crazy.
I tell you what, I've watched Gunnar Holmes, who's a freshman at Parkway West, a few times, just because he's a neighbor kid of mine, and he's a cousin of Kyron Williams, so he's got good bloodline. Both his uncle, his dad, and his uncle played at K-State. But watching him mature this year has been fun, and I think he's making tackles all over the field, which he probably doesn't think he's playing to the standard he wants to play to. But you got to remember, you're 14 and you're playing a bunch of 18-year-olds. I think you're probably going to get it figured out by the time you're 16.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're
I think you're going to be okay.
You're a 14-year-old freshman linebacker. You got about 70, 75 tackles on the season, 8 games in. You're doing something okay.
Yeah. So it's fun watching guys like that mature and take on a leadership role on a team that, just because your effort's so high.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the guys that turn around 2-3 years from now that are big recruits that everybody's like, oh, yeah, this guy, he's good. Well, yeah, but he's been –
if they keep on that,
you got to stay. Oh, you got to train, lift. You got to do your film study.
There are
all
guys
that stuff
who come in and they play as a freshman. This is one of the stories that I hate. Breaks your heart to see it, where they come in there and they have a really good freshman year, and then fan site services or whatever will jump all over them, and they're the next thing. And I mean, there are guys I could mention names, and it's like nothing's going on with them in recruiting. All that early stuff doesn't matter, because it's your totality of your work. You got to keep on an upward trajectory, and a lot of people don't.
You mean
you love to say middle school hero, high school
zero,
high school zero. Yeah, that thing can happen in your freshman and sophomore year too.
Oh, well, because kids just read their press clipping and it's like, well, yeah, I'm the guy, and it's like, and you gain some cachet on your team, like you're the kind of the guy, like, and the coaches trust you. And sometimes, let's be truthful, a lot of guys like that are kind of like more prodigies. People leave them alone, right? And like they don't really coach them because it's like, he's good. We got enough other problems to worry about.
Mess with that.
Yeah, we got problems over here. Let's go worry about this, right? And so, to me, you want to like, if it's my son, I want him getting coached. I want him getting pushed, and not pushed to being pushed. I want him to being pushed into areas that he needs to get better in, right? And so I think that's oftentimes overlooked with young athletes. Like it's like this, well, you expect him, well, he's, this guy's a highly rated kid. He's supposed to, like, I remember working with Blaine Gabbert when he was in high school, and like, like there was a lot of guys like, it was like, well, yeah, he's good and whatever. Let's just, we don't even mess with it. But I was always like, hey, you're not, you need to learn how to read. Like your coverage, like your aspect of that game needs to get better. So like I would force him in practice to tell me what coverage that he thought they were in pre-snap, right? And he was a goofball kid, and he would mess with me and he had a unique way of showing me it was cover one behind his back, right? Just stuff like that, but just things like that. But but he was learning, right?
Yeah.
And those were an area where he could, he could out athlete everybody on the field, but he was starting to learn and understand, like, hey, coverages, right? And
Yeah.
then when you get to college, obviously that ramps up tenfold. So I think
I remember having a conversation with him when he was at Mizzou about that. He didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
because you're at that level. You're like, huh?
Yeah.
So, but look at where he finally wound up. He was a young guy still because he was playing early, and that's all just part of the maturation process.
Oh, it just takes tons of time. So I think the overall arching theme is like, you're never finished. And if you are finished, you're finished, right? Like, if you're done, it's done.
Right.
Like, you're never done. Right. And the other thing is, we always tell our guys, like, look, the only time you're coasting is when you're going downhill. So if you coast, you're losing ground, right? You have to continually get better. And if you're not, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, kiss of death. Kids that are seniors right now, like, and this is specifically for them, if you think for 1 second that you can back off of training and development between now and the time you leave, if you're an early enrollee or now and if you're a summer enrollee, you're out of your mind. You need to do exactly everything that you did before and then some to even get a chance to compete early in college, right?
Correct.
Like, the perspective is, you're working with these guys, right? Like right now you're playing against high school boys, right? Of which 95% will never play college football ever again. Like, they won't play after high school. They're done.
I think that's shrinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's done. So that's who you're playing against, and that's your beating. Well, your next step in your evolution is you're playing against the 5% that made it. And those guys have all been sharpening their skills against each other all year. Some have been there 4 years, some have been there 5 years, some have been there 6 years. And you think just playing high school football is going to get you prepared to make that step. And the problem is, you get to college nowadays, if you're not ready, they write you off.
Yeah.
So like, you're playing with fire. So you think you're just going to come in, oh, they recruited me, they love me. Do they? Do they?
They love what you can do for them.
Yeah, right. If you're just another guy that's on the team until you can help them.
Right. If you're producing, they love you.
But what are you going to do to help produce? And my point is always like, yeah, you can't go play against college kids because you're in high school, but you can train, you can develop, you can do and enhance the skill sets that they liked about you and make those better. So when you get there, you have an opportunity to at least be treading water and not drowning.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And the competition for college scholarships is so severe right now. If you are,
it's going to get worse.
It is. It's getting worse all the time. If you are not doing that, if you're not putting in the training, if you're not putting in the off-season thing, and it takes a little bit of the fun out of it. When we were talking about, you're each season you're playing a different sport and just having fun, but that could wind up costing you. And it's something that parents and players need to take a harder look at now more than ever. And I know that might not be popular with other sports coaches if they hear that, but it's like you're not.
Let me ask you this: why is it okay
to make them have a winning record? You're there for yourself and your kids.
What's funny though, football is the one sport, and it's because it's the sport of athletes.
Yep.
The one sport that it is like really taboo. Like, you should be playing other sports too, not just football.
Yeah.
But baseball and basketball, those guys are year round. They're playing their sport.
Absolutely.
And their coaches, their club coaches, are the first one to say, oh, don't do that. You don't need to do that. But here's my thing. If you're like basketball, I love basketball. But here's the thing. There are so many kids that should not be playing basketball that are playing basketball. If you're playing on your high school team having fun and it's just doing that, and you're not trying to tour the country, and you're a 5'11" point guard and think you're going to make it, like, yeah, you might make it, but not the level you think you want to play at, right? Like 6'5" plus. Like, the average height of those guys in the NBA is what, 6'7"?
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. You're going to be a 6'7" guard.
Right. And you need to be able to play at a high level. And so, like, there's so many kids that distract themselves. And I'm not saying that basketball is not fun and it doesn't lend itself to other sports. But the reality of it is when you spend all summer doing something that, quite honestly, you're going to be 4 inches too short to do at a high level, when there's guys your same height, your same speed, and same body build that are getting paid to play college football. And again, maybe you just don't like football. So if you're that guy, just stay away from football. Maybe you just go have a little fun. But if you're a guy that thinks he's going to be a college football player, or maybe that's in the back of your head, you might as well work at it.
Yeah.
You got to work at it.
Without question.
And a lot of times that other sport, let's be truthful, is just used as a distraction, right? Like summer baseball. When I coached high school football, these guys would be gone all summer. You go, you want to play college baseball? Oh, I don't want to play college baseball. Then what are you doing the entire summer? Well, my coach needs me there. Well, yeah, but the problem is that you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're not going to be a college baseball player. You just said that. You don't want to do it.
Right.
You say you want to play college football, but you are basically you're just killing all availability of you for you to be able to do that.
Well, we ran across that with Dayton Hopkins, who's going to be heading to the University of Missouri as a defensive end. We ran across that with him when he was a sophomore, right?
A catcher.
He was a catcher. I don't know if I can miss baseball practice, JP. I don't. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
You're about a 6'5" sophomore. You're not going to play catcher.
Right. And in our heart of hearts, that like where he projects football wise. It'd be one thing if he said, hey, I really don't like football. I want to play baseball. Fine, go do that. But it's the kids that I think that are probably well suited for football that somebody needs to get in their ear. And they probably have their high school coach telling them like, hey, man, you should really do this.
Without a doubt.
But there's a lot of other voices. But I do think it is interesting. I think football, and I could be biased, I think football gets beat out by so many other sports. One, because football is a game that you have to practice 4 to 5 times to play one game.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very attractive. It's also a game that you spend 8 months in the off season doing a lot of non-football stuff, preparing your body and sprinting and lifting and all that, with very little football actually involved in competition. And then, our closest thing you can do is 7-on-7, but that's not tackle football, right? There's something that's very different. And yeah, it's fun, but it's definitely different. There's some translatable skills. There's some non-translatable skills, but it's a hard sell where, hey, let's go play games all summer long, or let's have basketball and soccer and baseball, and we can do it all year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could play 4 games in a weekend. Well, we get 8 games in a season,
right.
It's a hard sell. And so I think kids just, you gotta, if football is the path you want to go on, the things we're talking about, there's hard decisions to be made. And I think, you can't serve multiple masters. Like you can't, like that's just not the way it works. And so if
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Master of none, right. And so right. That is the perfect way to look at it, because like if you want to spend all your time in the gym shooting a basketball, but you're a quarterback, like it's hard to reconcile.
That's timely right there.
And you miss a lot of that the nuance of what you're trying to develop and teach your body.
Right.
And you have people go, oh, well, that's those shooting skills will probably help him and seeing the field and this and that. And like, no, throwing a football at targets and people and routes and understanding when, how to time it and refining your mechanics is going to help you do that.
Right.
And so it's hard. I know kids are pulled in every which way, but I do think if you don't start to see what's coming down the pipe with all of the things in football, in particular with how they're going to be paying football players and basketball, but it's only going to get more hyper competitive in both sports. And so like, you better be really good at one versus the other, right? It's very rare that we see those dual sport guys anymore, where they're so good that they're, deciding whether or not they're going to, they're not Charlie Ward.
Right.
They go, I'm going to play both football and basketball.
Right. And like I said, it's a year-round thing. Something I want to bring up, though, don't want to spend a lot of time on it, though, is, season is winding down for high school guys. This is the last regular season game, last high school football game for a lot of guys of their lives, their careers, coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday. And then after that, you have a turnaround. If you want to play football, you want to, worry about your off season, your skills. 7-on-7 tryouts
Yep.
are coming up as early as November 15th. I do believe it is
November 15th. That'll be our first one. If you're still playing, we don't want you there, right? You can come say hi, but we won't want you there because you need to be playing with your team. And then we'll have another one the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And then we'll have another one after that. But I think, focusing on lifting and the off-season type program is going to be our big push this year for our kids is, lifting, getting your running in and being prepared at a high level to prepare your body for that, that next season. And I think that's the beauty of football. You have to work 8 months to live in the moment we're in right now. Right. And again,
have that payoff.
Yeah. You gotta get, there is a payoff.
Instant gratification.
So no, it's not. And so, but there is a payoff if you become really good at it and become coveted. The payoff is going to be pretty much not unlimited, but pretty high,
pretty close,
pretty high. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It can take you a lot of places. I always tell kids, like, football can take you a lot of places in life.
Amen.
So
enjoy. And so you look at a guy like Brady Cook, right? And we got to be careful about talking about like where it can take you.
Yeah.
It can take you down some bad paths too. But what it can do is it can take you in a situation where, like, Brady didn't get into going to Mizzou, to be a NIL, king where he's making a bunch of money.
Right.
He he got into it to do what? Compete and play and help his school.
Yep.
Right. And
while loving the game, getting to play a game that he loved.
Right. And if you talk to him about it, which we did interview him, like it's, these guys are pinching themselves, right? Like, because man, I get to do this and I get to get paid. Like what do they say? Like, if you find something you love and you do it, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right. Find something that you love like that and let it kill you.
Yeah. Right. Let it kill you, which I'm in the process of it. Right.
I was thinking about it. I know.
But Brady is now in a situation, and it's pure because, like, he didn't get into this going, hey, what can you give me? It's like, no, he earned into that. So then you look at like his story, right? This past weekend, a tremendous,
we probably should have led with this story.
Yeah, like the tremendous, right? So he goes down the first series.
Big Mizzou win.
Of course, it was a hip drop tackle, the guy, which is why they got rid of him. You could roll guys up. His ankle got caught. He, of course, stayed in the game. The next play, looked like he got kicked on it. And you could tell he was a little tender. And then he went to roll out and press down and it just gave out, right? So as the story goes, went into the training room, right? Things happen in the training room. The doctors were looking at it. I think they probably figured out, like, ooh, this thing got big pretty fast. I saw a picture of it. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
And you say, all right, well, we need to make sure that there's no, major ligament damage that we're not, that they can't see. So you got to MRI it, right? And so I think I heard him in the interview. He was talking about, well, how did you get from the stadium to the hospital? And it was a trainer. He just got in the trainer's truck, took his pads off, and then he said, driving through the tailgates, and there's people looking, and he said he clearly made eye contact with some fans. Like, we were probably like, well, that ain't good.
No kidding.
Right. And these are the fans that are outside the game, right?
Yeah.
They're
like seeing Mizzou's season go by.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like he's 30 plus minutes. He's in there getting it. We've all, had MRIs and stuff like that where there's no phones, right? There's no communication.
MRIs are no fun.
No, it sucks.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm no fan. But so yeah, he gets that, and then of course then okay, yeah, fine. We're gonna try some medical treatments on it, and it sounds like all the things they tried didn't work, and then finally one of the treatments, right? You can use your imagination what kind of treatments they do, the block things, and so you don't feel it as bad, but it worked.
Give you some zombie juice.
Yeah, and then he got out there, it worked, and then the crazy thing is, like, you see a guy come back, you don't think they're going to run him. He ran.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a bit, 70+ yard completion to Mookie, which I thought was pretty cool for Mookie because he's hung around this year. He's going to help the team, right? And he's bought in. So he did a really good job. But then Brady comes back and then he executes, and you could just see it in his face. Like he loves, I think he read the realization, like, hey, I got 2.5 games here at Faurot. Like, I'm not going out like this.
Right.
Right. And that team sparked, right? And it was, yeah, granted, is Auburn unbelievable? No, but they're an SEC school who had you on the ropes, was beating you,
Yep. You better
right?
believe it.
And to
Yep.
come back against them is not an easy feat with the minimal amount of time. So yeah, watching that unfold is awesome.
That story is the stuff legends are made of,
Amen.
right? And you and I know Brady, and we know he's that guy with that heart. But if you're a Mizzou fan, or if you've been a Mizzou hater in the past, hopefully you hang that up,
You
right?
got to, like, I know, I know we're homers because we like the guy and we have a relationship with him, but my God,
I mean, come on. What more could you want? If I hear one more dink, just say to me, "Whoa, man, he missed this throw."
Well, you know, they're not throwing the ball downfield,
right,
and they can't.
He missed 2 throws in a row.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, what you get out there? What are you going to do?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Just not understanding it. But I mean, the fact that he wears Mizzou on his sleeve, right? Mizzou is part of his heart. He's got a tremendous heart, tremendous drive, and he went out there and willed them the victory after being injured. You showed, you know, I mean, there's pictures out there of his ankle, like you said, and it's
nasty.
It's nasty, man. How he came back and did that is just amazing.
And the fact that he framed it as such that it was about the team. And so I saw it, you know, the end they did, like, the team was like celebrating in that locker room. They're like chanting his name and trying to raise him up. And knowing him, he's like, no. He's very uncomfortable. He's like, no, don't do that.
He's not that guy.
So, and
we know guys who would love to be that guy.
My God,
he's not that guy.
Yeah, right. And again, it's all about authenticity. Mm-hmm. So, it's funny
very
though. A very interesting situation years ago occurred. If you remember, Mizzou was playing a night game against Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabbert got rolled up on real similar, and it was him and Sue ended up being teammates in Tampa Bay.
Yep.
But Sue rolled up on him, and it was looking like he was trying to hurt him. I mean, it was not.
It was a hip drop. That game,
pulled him back. And if you remember in that game, it was a torrential downpour, so something flooded in the locker room, so they could not X-ray, they couldn't do anything like medical treatment. And during the broadcast, they cut to a scenario where Blaine was actually on the sideline. This is the pre-tent days, you know, when they had the tents for privacy.
Yeah.
And they were shooting him up on the sideline. And like, whoa, like, you don't see that very often. So, like, again, for anybody that's played that level of collegiate athletics, there are things that go on, like at the doctor's office or in the training room, where, I mean, I remember I had some severe shoulder issues going on, and I would go, like, the number of needles that they were able to get into my shoulder and pull my shoulder out of the socket, essentially, so they could get it into different areas. Like, it's not for the faint of heart. No. And you know what? But you get to that point where your body's like, hey, it's not working. Yeah. Right. And so
at a certain point, you're in enough pain to where you'll, like, whatever.
Do whatever you got.
Just please. Draw and quarter me. Pull me apart.
So they had Gabbert. I'll never forget that. I was watching it. I was like, oh my God, like, you don't see that very often. And it's like probably one of the very few times you actually see what's going on and how they're doing it. Right. And they're, you know, doing it live, trying to, you know, find it. And I'm sure normally they have like fluoroscopes or whatever they do to find nerves and all that. And but they did it live on the sideline. He went back in, he had a droopy leg. I mean, and then he played for weeks on end with like a, and then turns around the next year and man, he played with a broken foot as a rookie.
Yeah.
And learned a lesson. Probably should never have done that. Right. And, you know, like, but you're doing it because you want to do it and you want to compete and that's the right thing. And then you realize, like, oh wait, they're paying me for this, like, differently.
Really got to compete.
Yeah. Right. So, but I what we saw from Brady, Cook, like Chase Daniel said it best. It was legiondary. And I think, you know, when you got a guy like Chase Daniel who's there,
who was legendary in his own
right. And so, you know, I just get tired of listening to it, and I don't say much about it. But like, the kid's proven himself time and time again. Like, I don't understand. Like you might like get mad about a misplay, but you have no context of like what was even done and was it done correctly. Like, that's why I reserve a lot of judgment watching games and trying to be that, you know, I like to watch how the rules are interpreted, because from a play perspective, you don't know what they worked on, what they're trying to do, how they tried to scheme it up, and then what happened and how they adjusted. Like it's hard to understand that, right? Um, but the black and white thing typically is like we get the beauty of watching a play on replay, so we can referee it ourselves, right?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I think when these people are like getting on him for they don't throw the ball down the field enough. It's like again back to this. They rush 4.
He missed
There's
the
7.
throw.
There's 7.
Yeah.
There's 7 in coverage, and we're not. We have a great receiver core, but it's not. It's not the 99 or 98 Rams.
Right.
We don't have Isaac Bruce out there running around with Torrey Holt. I mean, we don't. Luther's a really good receiver, but there's still some things route running wise that need to occur.
Yeah.
Right. From time to time, you just look at just spacing and just the ability to get to be where he's supposed to be. Right. Like in my opinion, I think they're doing a pretty damn good job. Are they perfect? Absolutely not.
No, they're really about where they should be, and I think people are finding that out. And great story, just a tremendous thing.
Yeah.
Mizzou Nation's been on a big high from it. Things get a lot tougher this week.
Yeah,
they're
Alabama who's a wounded bird,
but
dangerous,
very dangerous. Yeah. The most dangerous wounded bird possibly that there could be
at home.
At home,
place.
Right? They get to feel good about themselves. And Brady, you understand, is going to play.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
sounds like he's going to play.
I mean, so that's the thing is, if you go out in that game and limping around and getting after it, you give them a full week, a competitor, short of something bad, like of something that they didn't catch in the MRI coming, rearing its ugly head. I can't imagine he's not playing.
So high expectations, are great, but like I said, Alabama's a wounded bird at home. They want to get right against a team with a wounded quarterback.
Right.
So it's should be an interesting game. It's always a fun game.
I saw people giving Drinkwitz trouble because they had bowl bound shirts, like because they got their 6th win.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, these guys this was a team that was, 11-2 last year, whatever. But it's like, I see all kinds of teams that when they get their 6th that are
everybody.
Yeah. Like, it's not like, I mean, people just.
Doesn't everybody have a bowl bound shirt? Because pretty much everybody makes a bowl.
Yeah,
I mean, 6 wins. I'm sorry.
They should up that. They should up it.
They really should.
Now, I do think the SEC is going to find out really quickly, like how strong their standing is with all this playoff thing, because they have definitely beaten themselves up. If you look at like how the Big Ten scheduled, they scheduled much more advantageously with each other, right? And then, granted, some of that's just the evolution of getting these teams together.
Then come bowl season, though, do they win many bowls?
It'll be interesting, right? I mean, that's why this playoff system. You do want to make sure the best teams are not disqualified because they've had 2 losses against top 25 teams or top 10 teams.
Right.
Like, to me, that they have to really they got a job on their hands because they're going to weigh in an undefeated whoever, Boise State or an undefeated whoever, and then does that care or undefeated Army or Navy, and then you throw them in there against whoever, and it's like, oh well, why were they in there?
I was gonna say there's gonna be a lot of people that are not caring about undefeated.
No,
based upon the super conferences. And I'm telling you what, this could have been a 2-hour show because there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to talk about. There's a lot we could have let off with Mizzou, but that would have taken the whole hour. We could have talked the whole hour about Brady Cook and Mizzou.
Yes,
be perfectly honest, we probably didn't do justice to it.
No, I don't think. Yeah, no, who's
so we might talk about that again next week. The playoffs, we're gonna have brackets next time we talk, and we're gonna know who's playing who. I still don't understand the whole Misha playoff situation with how they worked that out, but we'll know by next Tuesday when we talk again. And a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool players, a lot of people doing a lot of very, very good stuff just across the state, college, high school, JFL. We'll hear about your last Longhorn game.
Yeah, I'll probably get a little emotional. You get
well, I have to be there for that.
An end of an era. Like having that situation.
I'll email Joe the video of you weeping on the sideline.
That's the thing is like it to me.
You're entitled.
I'm excited about seeing one more time what they get to do. Right.
Yeah.
Win, lose, or draw, I'm excited because they've gotten better. I've watched them from 5th grade to 8th grade. It has been a complete evolution. And there's been some bumps in the roads, and we've added new kids. We got an original 16 kids that are still there
Cool.
out of like 24.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
A couple kids moved. A couple kids decided football wasn't for them.
Yeah.
A lot of those kids still come to the game, so which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the body of work speaks for itself. And I'll give you the final. I don't want to jinx myself, but it's a pretty good run. I mean, if you look at like what we've done, like it's pretty cool. Like the numbers are pretty impressive.
Well,
so,
you can give us the final numbers next week.
Yeah,
when it's all
said and done.
Yep. So that'll do it for this week. Where can people reach you at? As it says right there on the screen.
Yeah, X Elite Football, and then Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
Yep. JP Rock MO on X. JP Rock Scout You, and of course you can catch the show Football 360 show on Apple as well as Spotify. Everybody stay safe, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.